Have you ever paused to wonder why, as the years pass and we advance into the later chapters of our lives, we tend to withdraw from bustling social gatherings, leaning more toward the quiet comfort of solitude? In today's exploration, we'll delve into this very phenomenon, why social behaviors shift as we age, and what those changes unveil about our deeper needs, shifting priorities, and evolving sense of connection. Grasping the nature of these transitions isn't just insightful, it's crucial. It equips us to preserve meaningful bonds, set realistic social expectations, and cultivate a balanced emotional life that aligns with the quieter rhythms of aging. Stay with us to the end, and you'll uncover how solitude, far from being a sign of loneliness, can actually become a pathway to a richer, more harmonious life. Along the way, you'll gather some practical insights for navigating social dynamics with grace and authenticity in your later years. Before we dive in, if you find value in what you're about to hear, I'd be deeply grateful if you'd like the video. Doing so helps this content reach others who may benefit. If you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so, and be sure to tap the bell icon so you don't miss out on future reflections. If the ideas here resonate with you, please comment with the number 1. If they don't, comment 0. Your feedback helps shape better, more relevant content moving forward. Now, let's begin. Think back to your younger days. Remember the uncomplicated joy of inviting friends over for a meal, sharing stories across a familiar dining table, laughing without pretense. In those moments, there was an unmistakable sense of freedom, a comfort that the sterile ambiance of a restaurant rarely offered. Our homes were warm, personal sanctuaries where genuine connection could flourish. These gatherings weren't grand or extravagant, but they carried an authenticity that rooted friendships deeply. We'd take turns hosting each other, often without fanfare or planning, and in doing so, we built bonds that felt resilient and real. Back then, we believed, truly believed, that sincerity was the bedrock of meaningful friendship, that authenticity was everything. Yet as the seasons changed, so too did society. We gradually witnessed a departure from these heartfelt traditions. The sincerity we once revered seems, more often than not, eclipsed by superficiality and performance. Where we once found ease and simplicity, we now encounter layers of politeness and obligation. Authentic people, it seems, have grown scarce, and the deep, vulnerable connections we used to cherish are now challenged by shifting cultural norms. The old saying, "Those who approach red become red, those who approach ink become black," rings with renewed truth today. It reminds us that our environment, social or otherwise, shapes our perceptions, habits, and emotional landscapes. It's no wonder then that our attitudes toward friendship have transformed. Many of us no longer feel inclined to invite people into our homes. The expectation of forging deep connections has dulled. Even when we do meet friends, it's increasingly at neutral, impersonal venues. A restaurant, a park bench, perhaps a cafe. The intimacy of home has been traded for convenience and distance. Consider Mr. Lee, a 50-year-old man whose life now reflects this quiet evolution. His days are simple by design. He stays home when he pleases, takes walks to stay active, and seldom attends social visits. When he does, he opts for public places instead of welcoming guests into his private space. This shift has not gone unnoticed. His relatives sometimes question him, curious about his apparent aloofness. But Mr. Lee explains, wisely and calmly, that with age comes change. Experience lends perspective, and with that, our values adapt. What once thrilled us in youth now feels tiring or unnecessary. He's traded large social circles for the quiet joy of personal rituals, brewing tea, tending to his modest garden, fishing by himself. He holds dear the time spent with his immediate family, finding in those connections a warmth that casual acquaintances no longer provide. His old friendships, once central to his identity, have faded gently into the periphery. He's come to see that the people who enter and exit your life frequently aren't always your truest companions. In the place of shallow pleasantries, he has found depth in solitude. Mr. Lee's story is far from unique. It reflects a broader pattern many elderly individuals quietly adopt. With time, people carve out their own rhythms. They become hesitant to step into others' homes, not out of coldness, but from a growing sense of self-awareness. There's a reluctance to intrude, a recognition that every household has its own dynamics, and that visits, however well meant, may not always be welcomed in practice. They may be perceived as burdensome, disruptive, or even awkward. These nuances, which might have been brushed off in youth, become more sensitive with age. One reason for this hesitancy is the sense that visits can sometimes feel more like disturbances than joyful reunions. In old age, individuals often sense that they no longer represent only themselves when stepping into another's home. They represent their family, their generation, even their values. A courteous invitation does not always reflect the sentiments of everyone in the household. There's a risk that one might be welcomed out of politeness while being privately seen as an intrusion. Such was the case with Uncle Ma, a neighbor of mine, whose experience underscores this delicate balance. One day, I ran into an old high school classmate in our community. To our surprise, we lived in the same neighborhood. Reconnecting was unexpectedly heartwarming. We exchanged pleasantries and eventually received an invitation to join him for a modest meal, just old friends catching up. For Uncle Ma, who dearly loves a good drink but often drinks alone, this was a welcome invitation. He seized the opportunity, bringing along dishes and drinks on weekends, relishing the company and conversation. However, the classmate's wife was noticeably uneasy whenever he arrived. Her expressions, though not overtly hostile, suggested a quiet discomfort. Still, Uncle Ma chose to overlook it, focusing instead on the joy of rekindled friendship. Over the next several weeks, he made it a habit to visit every few days. It was during one such visit that the classmate, with evident reluctance, finally addressed the elephant in the room. "Every weekend you come to drink," he said. "My wife and children are starting to voice concerns. They feel their lives are being disrupted." This was a wake-up call for Uncle Ma. He had mistaken the initial invitation for an open-ended welcome and had never paused to consider that his visits, once eagerly anticipated, had grown burdensome. The fear of losing purpose or becoming socially irrelevant is one that quietly haunts many older individuals. Regular interaction, be it chatting with a neighbor or dining with an old friend, offers a break from monotony, a chance to feel connected and alive. But therein lies the paradox. These very efforts to stave off loneliness can sometimes cause strain on hosts, on relationships, and on one's own peace of mind. Miscommunications, however small, can blossom into resentment. Comments made in jest can be misconstrued. A friendly visit may overstay its welcome. The risks multiply. Miss Wong, who lives just upstairs, has learned this lesson all too well. After retirement, she found joy in the rhythm of community square dancing. It kept her active, spirited, and engaged. But when the weather soured and the group couldn't dance outdoors, she and her fellow retirees would visit one another's homes to keep the social energy alive. These simple gatherings, meals, chatter, a little television, were meant to be harmless fun. But one such gathering took a difficult turn. During a casual visit to Mr. Lee's house, a conversation began about family dynamics. Miss Wong, in a light-hearted tone, mentioned that her daughter-in-law lacked initiative around the house. She made a broader remark about how marrying an only child could lead to certain challenges, implying they might be too coddled. The comment, though not ill-intended, eventually reached her daughter-in-law's ears. The resulting frost between them was unmistakable. Her son scolded her for what he saw as gossip, and the comfortable family atmosphere was disrupted. Miss Wong tried to clarify, to explain that her words had been taken out of context, but the damage had already been done. That moment reshaped her view on socializing. Now she keeps to herself more. She still dances but avoids deep conversations and limits visits. In her eyes, saying less helps prevent misunderstandings. Fewer words, fewer problems. This coping mechanism, though perhaps sad on the surface, offers her a degree of peace. It's not that she doesn't enjoy others' company, she simply learned to shield herself from emotional fallout. Another subtle yet significant reason why older people grow more reserved is the presence of economic disparity within their communities. Even in neighborhoods that appear cohesive, family incomes can vary drastically. This isn't just about money, it's about comfort, pride, and comparison. When someone from a more modest background visits a wealthier household, there may be unspoken tension. The wealthier host may not intend to show off, yet the contrast in living standards is impossible to ignore. This disparity can breed discomfort, even envy, and though these emotions are rarely expressed out loud, they fester beneath the surface, subtly impacting relationships. What should have been a friendly chat over tea can instead become an unspoken comparison. The furniture, the dishes, the television, the brand of rice in the pantry. It may sound trivial, but such observations linger. They can trigger feelings of inadequacy or unworthiness. In some cases, the less affluent individual may begin to avoid visits altogether, choosing instead the safety of solitude over the vulnerability of silent judgment. These comparisons add weight to interactions that once felt light and joyful. Such psychological stress isn't always apparent, but it's very real. The result? Many people, especially the elderly, begin to retreat into their own lives. They stop hosting, stop visiting, stop engaging. And while this may seem isolating, it often brings them a surprising sense of contentment. Free from the pressure of comparison or social obligation, they find peace in simply living as they choose. You can even see this shift during holidays, those once cherished times of togetherness. In the past, families would visit each other during the new year, exchanging blessings and homemade dishes. Today, however, many prefer to stay home. They might scroll through their phones, watch TV, or rest quietly. This isn't due to laziness or apathy, it's exhaustion. Life has become relentless, and the emotional investment required to maintain surface-level connections no longer feels worthwhile. Unless life itself slows down, unless people learn to reconnect with authenticity, this trend is likely to continue. Yet as this trend deepens, it invites a profound question. Are we becoming lonelier, or are we simply redefining what connection means in the later stages of life? For many elders, the answer lies somewhere in between. The desire for connection hasn't vanished. It's just evolved. In youth, relationships are often driven by shared experiences, mutual discovery, and the pursuit of excitement. But in old age, that pursuit turns inward. The noise of the world fades, and what remains is a longing for peace, stability, and authenticity. When these qualities can't be found in others, older individuals often choose to cultivate them alone. And it is in this quiet cultivation that a different kind of richness begins to take shape. A life not defined by crowds or chatter, but by clarity, intention, and stillness. The reality is, with age comes a deeper attunement to one's energy and emotional bandwidth, where a younger person may tolerate small talk, tolerate mild discomforts, or go out of their way to appease others. An older individual recognizes that their time and energy are limited. They no longer feel compelled to explain themselves, to prove their worth, or to entertain meaningless obligations. This is not selfishness, it's wisdom. After a lifetime of navigating relationships, enduring misunderstandings, and witnessing how easily affection can turn to expectation or criticism, they begin to see solitude not as a void, but as a sanctuary. The home becomes more than a dwelling. It becomes a refuge, a space where they can control the tone, pace, and energy of life without interference or demand. Consider the quiet morning of an elderly woman named Aunt May. Her children are grown and live far away. Her husband passed years ago, yet she rises every day at dawn with a sense of purpose. She waters her flowers, prepares a simple breakfast, and reads the newspaper in silence. Her day is not filled with errands or guests, but with moments of small joy, a walk to the market, a cup of tea at the window, a phone call from her son. Occasionally, neighbors invite her to gatherings, but she declines more often than she accepts, not because she doesn't enjoy people, but because she cherishes her time. In her solitude, there is no performance, no need to pretend to be more cheerful, more social, more engaged than she truly feels. She has lived enough life to know that peace is more valuable than popularity, and so Aunt May, and many like her, begin to prune their social gardens. They no longer water every connection. They no longer chase after friends who forget to call or only reach out when they need something. They stop initiating visits that feel one-sided or hosting dinners that leave them exhausted. Instead, they become selective. They nurture only the relationships that nourish them in return. And if that leaves them with just a handful of close bonds, or even none at all, they are content. Because the relationships that remain are honest. They require no effort to sustain. They offer companionship without cost. This is not to say that elderly people don't want companionship. They do. But what they want even more is sincerity. They want conversations that matter, gestures that are genuine, time that feels mutual. If a visit is born out of obligation, they'd rather it not happen. If a phone call feels forced, they'd rather enjoy the silence. And so they wait for the rare moments when someone visits out of true affection, when a meal is shared without agenda, when a conversation flows without tension. These are the moments that matter now, and because they are rare, they are treasured. Interestingly, this paring down of relationships is not always met with understanding. Younger family members may interpret it as withdrawal, sadness, or even depression. They worry that their elders are isolating themselves, that they need to be pulled out into the world again. But often they misunderstand. What appears to be loneliness from the outside is, in many cases, simply contentment in a different form. Older individuals have learned to listen to their inner rhythms. They know when to speak and when to remain silent, when to engage and when to retreat. They are not anti-social. They are selectively social. They have traded quantity for quality, noise for depth. Still, this transformation does not happen without loss. There are moments of ache. Of course there are. Moments when an old friend's birthday passes unnoticed, or when a holiday feels a bit too quiet. Moments when they see younger families laughing at a restaurant and feel a sudden wave of nostalgia. But these moments do not undo their peace. They are simply passing clouds in an otherwise clear sky, and over time, they learn to welcome even the solitude that surrounds those days, recognizing it as a companion in its own right. This process, the narrowing of the social circle, the shift toward inner life, isn't something to fear or resist. It is a natural and even necessary stage of emotional maturity, but it requires a cultural shift in how we view aging. Instead of labeling solitude as something to fix, we might do better to understand it as a form of inner alignment. A life stripped of noise is not an empty life. It is a refined one. Like a bonsai tree pruned over decades, every branch that remains is deliberate. We must also recognize that this transition is not universal, nor is it instantaneous. Some older people still crave the company of others. Some still love hosting parties, organizing outings, joining clubs, and that's just as valid. The point is not to say that aging must lead to solitude, but rather that when it does, it shouldn't be mistaken for despair. For many, it's a homecoming, a return to self. In the end, whether we age in company or in solitude, the heart of the matter lies in authenticity. Are we living in ways that honor our truth? Are our relationships aligned with our values? Are we engaging with others because we want to, or because we feel we have to? The elderly who find peace are those who answer these questions honestly and then shape their lives accordingly. They are not anti-people. They are pro-peace. So what can we learn from this as we move through our own lives? Perhaps the most important lesson is to build relationships on the foundation of sincerity early on, to cultivate friendships that don't depend on constant maintenance, to speak truthfully, listen deeply, and part gently when needed. As we grow older, our capacity to entertain surface relationships diminishes, but the beauty is we no longer need them. 1 or 2 honest connections are worth more than 100 casual acquaintances. We can also learn to respect the boundaries of others, especially those of our elders. When a parent or grandparent chooses not to attend a gathering or refuses a visit, it's not always a rejection. It may be self-preservation. It may be wisdom speaking through silence. Rather than taking offense, we might ask what they truly need. Is it rest? Is it space? Is it a different form of connection, one that doesn't require noise or performance? And if we ourselves are approaching this phase of life, we can start practicing now. We can begin to simplify, to let go of relationships that drain us, to say no when we mean it, to invite only those who bring peace, to create a home that is a true sanctuary and not just a stage for visitors. In doing so, we prepare for a future that is not lonely but luminous. There is also a practical side to all of this. If you are someone with elderly loved ones in your life, consider how you show up in their world. Don't visit just out of obligation. Visit because you genuinely want to. Don't expect them to entertain you. Sit with them, share silence if needed. Bring a moment of peace. If you can't visit, send a note, call, share a memory. Let them know they are remembered not just during holidays, but on ordinary days too. These small gestures often mean more than grand events. And if you're an older person listening to this, know this: your life still holds immeasurable value. Your presence, your quiet wisdom, your calm observation, your stories are all treasures, even if few recognize them. Solitude does not diminish your worth. If anything, it magnifies it. You've earned your peace. You've earned your rest. And if people come into your life who do not honor that, you are under no obligation to let them stay. Your time is yours now. Spend it how you choose. Ultimately, the world may grow louder, but you don't have to match its volume. You can live more quietly, more gently, more truthfully. And in doing so, you may find a joy that is not dependent on noise or novelty, but rooted in clarity, in presence, in peace. Thank you for spending this time with me. If anything in this message spoke to you, I invite you to share it with someone who may be walking a similar path. And remember to leave a comment, just a simple one if it resonated, or 0 if it didn't. Your voice matters here. Until next time, be well. Cherish your quiet. It may be the most profound companion of all.